Hi, you with Julian on the brown note and a gone but forgotten, as I haven't listened to anything new for a while. Salem and the album King Knight. Gone but Forgotten is my fairly frequent series now on albums, sometimes artists, sometimes movies that were either denied classic status on release or have been forgotten about since. And this, I think, is probably my newest entity to be in a Gone But Forgotten sequence, because it's 2010. And I would say that it broadly fulfills both criteria. It did get good reviews on release, but not great reviews. And there were certainly naysayers. And it was my album of the year on my radio show in 2010. And it's an album I've gone back to many times since and still listen to with frequency. And I think it's been a very influential album, and yet also in that bracket of albums that is influential, but nothing else quite sounds like it and ever has. They came, they saw, they released King Knight, and then they disappeared, kind of, without an explanation. Well, so this is basically a band that coined an entire genre, a micro genre called Witch House. So let's have a brief discussion of, or look at what defines Witch House. Witch House is characterized, and this started around 2006, 2007. Witch House is characterized by the use of hip-hop drums, noise, atmospherics, creepy samples, dark synth pop, heavily altered, distorted, and sometimes pitched down and reversed vocals which are rapped or sung. Influences range from electronic-based genres like ambient house and synth pop to alternative music like shoegaze. This is a shoegaze album, one of the best shoegaze albums, I think. Industrial and gothic rock, all of which appear here. And also noise and drone. DJ Screw is a pioneer of the chopped and screwed genre of hip-hop music, which is a cornerstone, a foundational stone of Witch House. Witch House's visual aesthetic draws influence from occultism, witchcraft, shamanism, horror, and if you think of films like Suspiria and that kind of stuff, there is a satanic vibe to it, and also a religious vibe, as like a non-satanic religious vibe to it as well. And the people coined that were basically the band Salem, who came from Massachusetts, I think. When I can find them, who made the album King Knight, and they actually did come back. I'll get to when they came back at the end of the review of the album. So from Traverse City, Michigan, and they featured Jack Donahue and John Holland, one of whom was a male prostitute working in truck stops, I believe, at the time. There was an air of sleaze about them, massive sleaze about them, a lot of controversy as well. Particularly when other acts associated with Witch House, Pitchfork magazine actually used the phrase rape gaze, which caused an absolute storm. Not at these guys, at another band, but the whole genre itself was mired in very not approaching the public for opinion. They used to use symbols in spelling their names, band name and song titles, to make them more difficult for people to search for online. They were not an outward-looking genre. And I think a lot of the best genres, the micro-genres, are the ones that die very quickly, and this died very, very quickly. So King Knight came out in 2010, and the other important member who's no longer with the band, if they even exist, is Heather Marlatt. And her voice is all over this album. On a recent re-listen, I was amazed that virtually every song has her voice on it, which is incredible, because on the 10 Years Later follow-up album, I didn't actually miss her voice being there, but it's so integral to the sound of the album. So King Knight came out, I gave it my album of the year, and it was in my top 5 or more albums of the decade, and no one really did give it that much credit. The first track, the title track, is the most famous one. A discombobulated I Love You. Sounds a bit like the opening to Ladies and Gentlemen, We Are Floating in Space. Intensely dramatic synth patterns kick in, and choral vocals from the Christmas hymn, "O Holy Night," which is the bedrock of the tune. And trap beats are integral to the sound of Witch House. Intensely bright, distorted synths and trap beats with sort of like these really pitched, distorted vocals. Everything here is maxed out to the red line. I'm thinking of the Los Thanica album a little bit with this as one of the few that is just so bleeding. But also a lot of rap and rage rap that would come out years later from that sort of whole Playboy Carti genre of rap where everything was bleeding on the everything redlined. And A$AP Rocky even was, I think, very sort of complimentary about the genre and its influence on him. And Clams Casino, the legendary hip-hop producer, there's certainly parts of this album that remind me of Clams Casino and Cloud Rap as well. It sounds at once both holy and satanic. And also in the breakdowns, quite melancholic. There's a melancholy vibe to this as well, but it is huge. It sounds colossal. And it's got this Ave Maria vibe going on it. It's a very apocalyptic opening to an album, and it's also probably a defining song in what Witch House is. The second track, Asia, I think was the first to be released by the band. It's very dark hip-hop, very wonky, very distorted ethereal vocals, very floor-crushing bass. And it's got this shoegaze vibe to it, which is, I think, one of the most constant genre taints of the whole album. It's morose sounding, but kind of uplifting. I think that comes from the synths. Very sludgy. Almost a little bit wistful from those synth melodies, which are often really strong on this album, no matter how much they distort them. A couple of lesser tracks. Frost is still really good, but I think like the first two tracks are standouts. Then there's a run of a couple that are in the context of this album a little bit lesser. It sounds very ominous, very pretty ethereal vocal. And the drums on this are another high point of the album as a whole. The drum programming, a lot of shredding going on, borderline blast beats at times. And it's almost like Slowdive with blast beats, actually, with that female ethereal vocal. And just replacing guitars with synths. It's very woozy, very druggy. This is a very heroin-y album, or maybe opium itself. And like I've written down here, I didn't realise how much her vocals were on the album. So I don't know what happened with her. There's a change of pace with Sick, track 4, which is introducing the various styles of male rapping voices on the album. Sort of like a death rap thing going on. And there is on these male rap tracks a real serial killer vibe going on. And again, it reminds me of Odd Future, the early Tyler, the Creator albums, which are really nasty and bleak and serial killer. And it's got a strong hook. A lot of these tracks, if they were cleaned up, would actually be, I reckon, hip-hop songs. But they're drowned in so much reverb and distortion and sludge that they kill it all. It reminds me of, I doubt many people will remember, but somebody did a drone death metal version of Krista Berg's Lady in Red, which was very famous for a while. A lot of it's like that. Then we come to a run of like 4 of the best tracks on the album in a row, which is one of the reasons I hold the album in such high regard. Like, there's only a few tracks that sort of fall back a little bit. So Release the Ball, a highlight, huge synths, and more like shoegaze, and very mournful again, grimy, sleazy. So all of it sounds like it was recorded in a basement in a drug-fueled frenzy that was into day 4, and the psychosis was coming. Following that, Trapdoor was actually featured in the movie A Place Beyond the Pines, and it got a lot of trouble for misogynistic, predatory lyrics, but that's the point of, that's what they were going for. They weren't trying to be nice at all. and him saying, I can't feel shit. It's very dark. It's very sort of pre-cloud rap, very Clams Casino. I think it's a well-sequenced album as well, because we go through these various points of more instrumental tracks, female-led vocal tracks, which are very sort of gothic sounding, and then these very sludgy, almost scary male rap tracks where you can't tell what anyone is singing, but on this track you can actually, for once, understand the lyrics, which are quite dark and misogynistic. Red Light's one of my tracks of the century and the most shoegaze track on the whole album. It's sublime and woozy as My Bloody Valentine's Loveless album. It's got these stinging synths and then fabulous shredding drum patterns, but when the guitars of Molten Lava, My Bloody Valentine, kick in, it's really spine-tingling moment. Slightly evil Cocteau Twins with her vocals over the... In fact, it's dream pop and shoegaze, I think. Trap gaze, maybe. Inventing genres every day, another Los Susanica trip here as well. Another highlight is Hound, 70s sci-fi synths, and bossa nova percussion breaks, which is kind of weird. Ear-bleeding synths, warped vocals, and here I'm thinking Crystal Castles as well. Opium Trap is what I wrote down here. Another high point, as is... I think that's 4 in a row, yeah. So track 9 is a couple of tracks in a row that are probably not as good, but it reminded me of the Jarbo era Swans track called Tracks. Got this medieval vibe, clanking and hissing percussion. I've written down Angel Heart for some reason. It's all very Doom, very Doom. There's a great drum pattern on Tear, which is track 10. Again, that voice from Trapdoor, the very heavily distorted serial killer movie vibe, and Clams Casino again. It's only a 2-minute track, but again, the lyrics are completely unintelligible for the most part. And 11, the final track on the album, Killer, it's not a massively long album, but it's a perfect length album. Has this incredible mid-90s dour alt-rock guitar riff, which is, played without distortion, pretty clean, and the bass line you can hear as well, before the heaviest guitar feedback on the album, really distorted guitars. It's a kind of album you want to have a wash after listening to, and I've listened to it so many times over the years, and I just don't think they get any credit, and that was really rammed home for me when Fires in Heaven came out in 2020. So they made this album, and like Chromatics around the same time, just vanished, didn't do anything for a whole 10 years. And then they came back with Fires in Heaven in 2020, minus Heather Marlatt, and made a fantastic album. It was in my top 10 albums of the year, and one of the tracks off of that was in my tracks of the year as well. I thought it was fantastic, a brilliant follow-up that expertly put it in the now, whilst also referencing where they come from. I thought they made an incredible album, and I think it's really been forgotten and didn't get the incredible praise it deserved on release. It fomented a lot of influence across other genres of music, particularly rap music, in the years to come. And it had this really dangerous, sleazy vibe to everything that was going on. The interviews became notorious. Their live shows became notorious for being absolutely atrociously bad. They played some expo, and footage of it went around the internet on YouTube, showing how bad their version of Red Lights was, and kind of led to the genre dying. But when I look back at micro-genres or genres that lived a short life in the UK, say shoegaze or garage and so on, UK garage and two-step and that kind of thing, I think they are the genres that really continue to come back. I think, it's maybe the Oasis tour will give you some Britpop music, but Britpop lasted so long and killed itself so bad that no band wanted to be Britpop again. I don't think any band wanted to be grunge again. Those genres played out in the public for such a long overstay that I don't think anyone wants to go back to them. But I'm waiting for the Witch House revival. I still think it's a trendy genre, and I think Salem's King Knight is well worth, given its continued influence and the fact that I listen to it all the time. If it came out this year, it would be in my top 10 albums of the year. So I'm going to give Salem King Knight, a Gone But Forgotten, 9.5 out of 10.